We've got Greg Hart from InceptionU and just about everything else that's going on in the city. And really just talking about, you don't have to be a deep, long-standing university or institution here in the city to be making some big waves. All right, and with that, I will pass it off to Greg, and I'm going to get you, there's a water for you right there as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Great to be here, and for the people online. And I was just telling Jason, I've been traveling so much lately, it's sort of weird to be in Calgary. But I'm happy to be here, and boy, does this look different than the last time I was in here. This looks really super awesome, so I'm thrilled to see this come together. And actually, I'm going to start off by saying that I'm going to tell you a bit about Inception, but I'm going to start off by saying that Inception has been working with the City of Calgary and City of Calgary data for a long time. So in every full stack software development course that we run, we have 3 projects that everybody participates in, because everything that we do is project-based. And the second project that we use city data. So we basically challenge teams in our program to take a look at the city data that's available and then decide, what's a challenge you'd like to work on with that data, and see if you can develop a tool as part of their ability to both think as designers, but then also pull together their skills as full stack software developers. So that's something that we've been doing for a long time, and it's awesome. So we have those projects are underway right now, and we can make sure that when they're done, and then we'll invite you to demo day, and you can come and see how these projects turn out. So that gives you a little bit of a preview into Inception, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. And you see the title here is "Experiments Are the Root of Learning." And I think because we've learned so many things and we've been able to put it in books, that we forget the fact that the way that those things were learned was by people running experiments. Like everything that we've figured out in the world, we figured out by experimenting in some way, some form of trial and error. But one of the things that we see when we bring people into our program is they're hesitant to start doing things. They always say to us, "Hey, Greg, can you just make sure I know everything before I start?" And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm going to give you things to do which you're not going to be able to know how to do, and you need to try and do those things. Because that's the first step, is to do a bit of trial and error, get comfortable with the fact that you don't know how to do everything, and then just get doing it. But we've kind of built a culture where you had to pass tests, you had to get certifications, you had to do all these things, and the message from all of that is you're not ready. And so the question that we ask at Inception is, are you ready? And the answer to that question needs to be yes. And that means you need to be willing to start stuff before you know all the answers, because it's kind of boring to start things that you all know all the answers to. So everything that we know in this world, somebody figured out through a trial and error process, because that's actually how humans learn. So that's a core idea that we use at Inception. And the origin of Inception was there were a real struggle in Calgary to find people with the right mindsets to fill jobs in the tech industry and in the innovation industry in general. And we went, and the idea wasn't to start InceptionU. We actually went to the existing institutions and said, hey, there's some things we need to adjust in order to make this happen. And the answer was probably not going to happen. Probably not going to happen quickly. So if finally somebody said to me, if you think this is such a big problem, you should go and do it yourself. So being a lifelong entrepreneur, I said, okay, challenge accepted. So I'm going to show you a little bit about more about what we think when we look at this stuff. First of all, this is a word that we hear a lot, which is interesting. Oh.
Everybody else in the audience has used this already. We had this with another.
Oh, okay.
We could try a screen share. Like, can you cast your an Apple device?
Like a.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's click share.
Click share.
I don't see a screen share. casting option, unless maybe I had to be on the Wi-Fi to do that. Well, let me just see what happens. Let's see if we can.
Yeah.
Is it going to do it on every slide or just every occasional slide?
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, it's not moving right now. We're good. We're good. We'll figure it out. Because this is about agility. So the thing about Agile is, I like to actually say that Agile is the most popular, least understood concept in business. Because everybody's like, yeah, we're Agile. So a company once was changing direction all the time, and I said to the CEO, what's going on there? We're being Agile. I'm like, I don't think you know what that means. I mean, the idea with agility is you're moving quickly with meaning, right? You understand where you're trying to go. You're running experiments. You're trying to understand what the risks are. You're trying to reduce the risks. You're trying to do things that value people, and you're trying to do it in that kind of way quickly. So this is a core concept that lives at Inception. So let's see what happens. So here's the other thing. When you don't know what's going to happen in the future, you can't use a map. You need to use a compass. So that's another thing that the approach that we take. Again, because you don't really know where you're going, then you can't take a map to go there. And I have an example which won't work, but this is Vancouver Island. So if you were in Nanaimo, which is where I just was, and you want to get to Tofino, now there's a map, so you know how to get there. But if you click the next picture, you see what it looks like today, because there's a map that's exploiting what we already know. So there's a road there, you can follow it. But before that road was there, this is what you saw. So if you still want to get there, you're not getting there with a map. You're getting there by trial and error, finding your way. Oh, we're going to go this way for a while. Oh, no, that doesn't work that way. Okay, so we're going to go this way for a while. Oh, it doesn't work. Until finally you find your way to where you need to go. And I don't think this is actually on the way to Tofino, but it's on Vancouver Island. But anyway, the point of it is you always try to run the smallest experiment that you can that costs you the least resources and the least effort to find out the next thing that you need to know. And this is a core idea behind Inception and how it goes. Keep going. There we go. So the Agile Manifesto is a document that was created in the 90s, but it captures these very important ideas, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. But the 4 core ideas inside this are individuals and interactions are more important than processes and tools. It doesn't say processes and tools are not important. It says that individuals and interactions are more important than those things. Working software is more important than comprehensive documentation. So the best way to test how well what we're doing is working is to actually build stuff that works. If we want to know how things are going, let's build something that works and use that. And that's the way, this is a core part of this. We're not going to talk about what we're going to do. We're not going to write documents about how great it's going to be. We're actually going to build it and show it to each other. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So many things happen in the world where it's like, I hire you to do something for me. You go away, you do that thing, you bring it back to me, and I sit there and go, yeah, that's about what I wanted, but there's these other things I really think you could do a better job. Go back and fix it. In Agile, the idea when it's done really well is that we actually take the customer and make them part of the team, so that what we're actually working on is trying to solve the customer's problem together. So in other words, the customer isn't bringing me a problem that I solve on their behalf. They're joining the team, and us together are working against the problem. So it's not like I'm trying to show the customer that we're doing the right thing. The customer's on our team. What we're trying to show is the problem that we're doing the right thing, that we're actually fixing it. And this is a nuance that does not often get caught, but it's part of the experience at Inception where we talk about this kind of idea. And then the final one there is responding to change instead of following a plan. It's not a terrible idea to work on making a bit of a plan. But if the plan dictates what you do, then you can't respond to change. And if you can't do that, then you're dead in the water today. Because responding to change is the core idea of working in the future. Let's see what's next. You can escape out and then... Yeah, the point being here that you can do that with anything. right? So what does it take to be future fit? Well, there are 8 things that we look at, and the first one is a designer. Everything outside of nature was designed. Everything in here, except for the humans, was designed, unless there's other animals in here too. Well, pet friendly. So if there are pets in here, then, well, yeah, they're still not really designed, although we have had a hand in breeding some of those pets. But basically, everything else in the world is designed. So that means design's kind of important. And that's a key part of the work that we do at Inception. And we look at it as being creating the conditions for success. That's all design is. It's understanding what the win looks like and then creating the conditions to get there. That's design. It's yes, how it looks, yes, how it feels, how it works, all that stuff. But the core idea is you need to know what it is to win and know what the conditions are to create that win. Second thing you have to do at Inception is be a fan of reality. Now, this seems like a pretty straightforward idea. Of course, you should be a fan of reality. I don't know if you notice, but humans are not doing really great at this these days. I mean, it's hard to find evidence of this problem, but, you know, if you flip open any one of your social media apps, I'm willing to bet the first page is going to show you this. And this means you have to have an unflinching commitment to what's really going on at all times. So to build great products, you need to do this. But to be a great human and to be a great citizen, you need to be able to do this too. And this is a core part of the Inception model. We push this all the time, that you need to be evaluating reality. And the reason for this is any organism, any living thing is only going to do well to the extent it really understands the environment it's operating in. Because if you imagine things to be true that aren't true, and you respond to imagined things to be true, that's not going to actually help in reality, because you're responding to something that's not real. And there's a lot of that goes on, and we can see that it leads to generally not very great outcomes. So you have to be a reality fan. Adaptive. So this is this part about responding to change. Need to be able to respond to change. So this is core. In the Inception program, we work on this ability to be adaptive, to always be able to adjust to the things that you're learning and flex with the changing conditions. And then you need to be comb-shaped. Has anybody ever heard this before? Does anybody want to be shaped like a comb? So the idea behind comb-shaped is used to be this idea of a T-shaped person. So the T is the horizontal part of the T is just sort of your breadth, your synergistic knowledge across disciplines. The vertical part is your discipline-specific knowledge. So if you're a software developer, for instance, it could be even very specific, like you're a front-end software developer. And if you have no other connections to anything else, like you don't think in the design terms, you don't think about back-end work or whatever else, then you have no horizontal part of your T. You're just an I. And there are a lot of I's out there in the world. The T-shaped person was the one who was like, okay, we're adding this horizontal component so we can see how things connect together. Even the full stack developer as an idea is essentially a T-shaped idea because it's the whole stack of software development. So comb-shaped goes one step further, which is to say you're going to have this really thick synergistic piece that goes across horizontally, and we're going to develop a bunch of discipline strengths that are connected to each other. Comb-shaped people who are adaptive are going to be very successful in the future. Is that bad news?
I just said I was pear-shaped.
Oh, yeah, pear-shaped. Don't worry, Jason, pear-shaped people will also be very successful in the future. Networked, so this means connected to information and to people. And this is a core thing as well. We're a social species. We only actually succeed if we do well with other people. Don't tell Elon Musk that, but it's true. And so this is a key part of our work as well. Next one. Learner. This seems kind of obvious. We don't say student. We say learner. Because the idea here is you're continually acquiring and updating your knowledge and your competence. InceptionU is a competence-driven program. So there's no tests of knowledge at InceptionU. Because I referee lacrosse, and I'm actually in charge of all the lacrosse officials in the world. And I can tell you that I know a number of referees in lacrosse who get 100% on their knowledge test. They know everything. They know every rule. They can quote to you the number from the book of each of those rules. But then I put them on the floor and have them referee a lacrosse game, and they're kind of a catastrophe. And yet it's like, whoa, they're fully certified. They passed the knowledge exam. They did a great job. But that's not what it's about. The conversion of that knowledge into ability is competency. Know-how is the key thing. And so everything that we do when we talk about being a learner is about acquiring competency. Anti-fragile. I don't know if you're familiar with this idea, but essentially this is helping people acquire the ability to actually get stronger as you get surprised, as you get a punch, as you get anything. It actually makes you stronger. So this is an ability to respond to the world in a way that makes you stronger even when there's friction and difficulty. And last is intentional. So we have a statement that we use, which is be meaningful, not mechanical. Life is not a series of checkboxes. If you want to create great technology, it's not a bunch of just mechanical steps one after the other. It's understanding in every step the thing that you decided was the success you needed to achieve in the first place, and then taking each step to understand how that's connecting to that thing. Because the moment you start writing code or wiring something together and you've forgotten what it was that you're trying to make successful in the world, your product is going to start to go like this. And this happens a lot. This is the one thing that I would say explains more crappy software and technology than any other single thing, is this lack of intentionality, this lack of connection to what it is that we were trying to do in the first place, including being adaptive enough to realize that the thing that we wanted to do in the first place is no longer a very good idea and we should just walk away, because that's a really worthwhile step to take as well. And there's lots of products where it would have been great if people had walked away instead of forcing them into the market. So this is what we call future fitness. It's not being future proof, it's being future fit, right? So that's the key thing. Future proof is like having a shield or a suit of armor to protect you from the future. I don't recommend that. Being future fit is having the ability to fit into whatever the requirements are and having the capacity, the fitness to be able to meet the demands of those requirements. And we believe that these 8 things are the answer to that, because the future, you might have heard, is described as VUCA, which stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Things that humans do not like very much. But here's the thing, it's always been like that. We've just fooled ourselves for a long time because we built lots of nice mechanisms that hide these things from us, but we're now living in that kind of future where it's very, very, very close to us. So that's the essence of InceptionU. That's the work that we do. We run programs that are a bunch of different ones, some that are online, some that are in person. Full stack software development is the one that we've worked with City Data on. But we also do full stack design. We have programs in growth marketing and lean sales. And we're actually about to start a program in leadership, which will start yeah, we're good. I'm not going to do it anymore. Other than, unless you want me to talk about the ants.
I don't know the ants. Tell us the ants.
I'll tell you the ant story. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to start a program in leadership, and then we also have a couple of others that we're bringing on. We're actually even spreading out into, I'm working on a thing with Kate Rayworth, who wrote Donut Economics, and we're doing a 21st century economist program, which we're going to start to offer, I think, later this fall or in the beginning of in January. So we're spreading out. Okay, since the ant thing is up there, I'll tell you about the ants. So ants individually are not super smart. But something happens when you get a whole pile of ants. They become quite a bit smarter as a group. And this is something about complexity. So in that VUCA, V-U-C-A, the C is for complex. Complexity means there are so many relationships that something weird happens when you put all these relationships together, which is to say something emergent happens. So like consciousness. Right now, you're all conscious. Right now, my brain or my consciousness is saying to me, Greg, look at all these crazy things you're saying into the microphone. Where's this coming from? How is this happening right now? I have that consciousness. But that consciousness is not from any one part of my brain. You cannot find something in my fingernail or in my brain or in any of yours that leads to consciousness. So when we talk about emergence, this is something that happens in nature based on so many complex relationships. It just produces these things, and we don't understand the direct connection, and it is ununderstandable. Like, it's not possible to be able to ever draw those lines, which is very different from the sort of mechanistic worldview that we've had, which has produced so much of the technology that we use today. But AI works like the ants. AI, well, at least as it gets bigger, it will. Because if AI gets enough tunable parameters, it will start to act in a complex way, and you will start to see emergent behavior coming from it. Even right now, I mean, it's basically a text prediction engine, but even the way that it works right now, it's showing signs of emergent behavior, which is super cool, super scary to some people, but it's super cool. So back to the ants. So the ants, an individual ant is, you know, not very hopeful, but a whole bunch of ants is good. So down at the bottom corner, we have the ant's hole, and you have to be careful how you say that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. And then up at the top, we have the picnic basket. And that's your picnic basket that the ants are coming to raid. But what happens is the ants all come out of their hole, and they disperse in all sorts of different directions because they're looking for food. When somebody finds food, they start bringing the food back to the hole, and or the nest, however we want to call that. And as they're coming back, they leave a trail of pheromones that other ants, when they happen to wander across it, will notice. And then those ants will pick up that scent, and they're like, oh, that means somebody found food. And so then you get this pattern, which is most of the ants are now going back and forth to the food source. But not all the ants. Because nature plays a game of distribution. It will never send all the ants after this food source because there might be another one. And so other ants continue to just go and look around for stuff, and they don't all follow the pheromone trail. And as you watch a huge mass of ants going through this, it's an incredible thing to watch. I should have a video to show that. But this is something that repeats in nature, and your immune system does the same thing. It's continually sending out scouts looking for particular kinds of bad guys circulating in your blood. And then when it finds one, it starts producing a bunch of other to go and get that bad guy, but it doesn't stop producing things looking for other bad guys. So your immune system works the same way as the ants do. And lots of things, AI is going to work like this. But the message that we take from this story is really that most of your energy should go towards exploiting the thing that you know, but always some of the energy should be going to explore the things that you don't. So that's why I had the picture of the lobby of opportunity there, which is that anytime you're faced a bunch of doors, you can go through a door, and unless you go through the door, you don't know what's on the other side. And all the opportunities that sit down that hallway are invisible to you until you go through the door. So those ants, 20% of them or whatever, are continuing to look for other doors. These ones who've already figured out that this door leads to food are continuing to do that. But it's a behavior that is a tension for any organization or person, because the energy that you use to explore takes away energy that you use to exploit the thing you already know. But you can't learn, and you can't grow, and you can't discover new things if you're not giving some of your energy up to be like the ants who are still out wandering around when they're doing that. So I always say, if you're going to plant a crop, 20% of it should be super weird, because you never know what's going to happen. You got to play. You got to play for the distribution, right? That's how nature works, and we're part of nature, and I think, starting to really realize that again, so we should take advantage. So that's my ant story.
Name tags on Monday, you're going to have to identify as an exploiter or an explorer.
Exactly. Or you could have like a little bar that slides across. Today, I am 75% explorer. Tomorrow, I feel like 75% exploiter.
I am out looking for a Reuben. All right. That's awesome. Okay, so I want to open it up for some questions for Greg, because it's not often that you get to have this time to be around in Calgary and you get to answer questions. But I do want to say one of the things that impressed me most about your students, no, there's two things that really impressed me, is that whenever I go and visit your class, you've got 17-year-old kids, and you got 62-year-old real estate agents that are adjusting and finding that love of learning.
Yeah.
And there's that coding piece. So just the diversity of students. And you've got just dropped out of high school to have a master's. I've seen that, like quite a few. Like one class I had, I think there was 2 or 3 people with their masters that were going and doing. How long is a cohort?
6 months full time.
6 months full time. And then the other piece, though, is that it wasn't just about here's the hard skills, especially for engineers. And we talk about reskilling, where they're taught to say no all the time. They're really taught to say yes and even taking that improvisational course. So they're taught to be more flexible, and then they're taught to how to tell a story.
Yeah.
Because how many great ideas fail at not being able to tell a story? So I just want to say, commend you for that. And if you haven't sat through something with the students there, find an opportunity to. But I'll open it up to questions for Greg. I know it's the end of the day, but I'm sure, I see Kev's got one.
Kevin's not allowed to ask questions. He knows too much.
Yeah.
I have an alumni.
Yes. Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's wearing a tie.
He used the 17-year-old in that story.
That's right.
Greg, can you do a very quick overview of donut economics, please? You mentioned that during your presentation.
Oh, sure. Donut economics is, maybe if I have a picture, it will make it better. I might actually have a picture. So I just did this huge presentation on that the donut was part of. So certainly, there's my 20% should be weird picture.
Monique, where's that breakdown on our team?
It's pear-shaped, the 20%. The 20% is pear-shaped. Okay, this is donut economics. So this was developed by Kate Rayworth, who's in Oxford. But essentially, it's a pretty elegant concept. So normally we measure economic production by GDP, right? But it doesn't really mean anything, because it's like going to the bank and saying, could you give me 3 inches of money? You wouldn't do that because you don't know what bills are going to end up in that pile. And GDP is like that too. It's just a quantitative measure, and a lot of stuff that's in it is maybe not that related to quality. This one is one that's organized around quality. So basically on the outside of the donut is the ecological ceiling. And these are like thresholds we can't pass if we want to stay alive on this planet, right? The inner part of the donut, the social foundation, are the social components that need to be thresholds that need to be met to keep a safe and secure society functioning. So that means that the economy lives inside this. The delicious part of the donut is the economy. So that's how this model works. So it works like a kind of compass in that sense that you say, these are the thresholds we need to stay above in the social foundations and below on the planetary boundaries so that you can live in the donut. That's the idea behind it. So it's a regenerative framework, because our current way of doing economics and everything, you can see the graphs that show these vertical rises and all of the bad stuff. That's what happens in an extractive economy, is eventually it just collapses because it can't be sustained. The idea behind this economy is it's an open economy that will be able to regenerate itself and self-renew, which is another condition for life. If you have to keep adding energy to something, it's not really alive, right? Like it needs the power to be able to recreate itself, which is part of the exploration-exploitation thing as well. And I can just show you that that's kind of what it looks like right now. Red's not good. So in every city, it's going to be a little bit different or whatever, but this is the global kind of picture for if you use this as a standard for evaluating. So that's donut economics.
Yes, Alessandro.
Yes. Hi, my name is Alessandro, so thank you everybody. So I just want to say that I'm actually right now a student in this amazing organization, and that is an amazing guy over there. Honestly, it's been an amazing experience, and I'm just saying that my process of thinking has changed so much, like in anything that I see and anything that I do. It's about adaptability and the way you see things, like especially thinking of humans in anything we do. We have a product, we have to design something, thinking about the human, because everything is about us. You know, when we think about humans, we need to think about ourselves, what we need. It's like we are the final product. Like we need to integrate that thinking in anything we think and we do. And honestly, my way of thinking has changed so much thanks to InceptionU and to them, and it's been the best organization. And on this side, I also would like to ask to Greg, how AI will interact more in the education system, and what's your perception of that?
First of all, thanks for saying those nice things. It's great. It's good to hear. And actually, I mean, I would say a common thing that we do hear from people who've been in the program is that they don't see the world the same way anymore after the program. So AI and education. So the educational model, as I said, was built on this idea of somebody gives you a bucket that's empty, and you take the bucket to school, and you go to some teachers, and you say, please, can you pour some of the stuff that's in your bucket into my bucket? And then every now and then somebody comes along and says, we're going to test what you know, and what we're going to do is ask you to retrieve things from the bucket in order to let us know how you're doing, that's a typical knowledge test. After which people can never find those things again, like they just study to pass the test and then that's it. And so what that means is there's lots of tests and papers that are written kind of in this model. Along comes artificial intelligence, where you basically get to ask artificial intelligence to write that paper or that test for you, because it also has access to the biggest bucket of all, right? So all those factoids and everything else are all available to AI. And so now this has created a crisis in education, because the model and how it works has now been completely undercut by artificial intelligence, and it's only going to get worse. And so now you see people running apps that help catch people who are using AI, you know, in their work. And as soon as you see that arms race start to appear, you know the model is done. Like anytime you're in an arms race, you need to know that you're in a bad game. So when you're talking to your young kids and you say it's time for you to go to bed, and the kid says, no, I'm not going to bed. And then you say, oh, yes, you are. You're going to bed. And the kid says, no, I'm not going to go to bed. And then actually stomps downstairs. And then you go down and you escalate. And then they escalate. And then one of the things that I learned when I was a parent of kids that age was that they were willing to go all the way to the nuclear level. And what I learned, not quickly enough, is that that's a bad game to be in. You have to find an exit from that game. And so AI in education right now, I think the message is you have to take an exit from that game if you're education, because it's exposed the basic framework of how we've been doing things. But if we do things, and I'm not saying that Inception has all the answers, but I think it's interesting that AI has no impact on what we do. And so if you're doing project-based learning, which again is back to like trial and error learning, like AI becomes a helpful tool for you now, because it's something where I need to get a kind of an idea. It's like a really super advanced Google search in the sense that it's a find, not a search. So in that way, AI can become a tool that I can use effectively. Or if I'm working with a team of 8 people and we're like just jamming some ideas and trying to figure out what we should do, and somebody's got to be writing all that down, and then we got to figure it out, put that together after, or we let ChatGPT or Claude or even Zoom's AI listen to our conversation, and at the end say, hey, Claude, do you mind just doing a nice summary of everything that happened here? And boom, it puts that stuff all together. That's unbelievable, right? But it's a tool that helps you learn rather than interferes or cheats or whatever. That's the kind of cheating I'm all day for, that cheating, where I don't have to spend 3 hours kind of putting all that together incorrectly. I can just go through what it did and check it for accuracy, and then that's good. And actually, I had this experience with the Zoom AI a couple of weeks ago. I was in some other time zone and I'm in this call and we're trying to do something and I'm struggling to make my point and I'm making up words. I'm struggling so badly, right? And then somebody says to me on the call, hey, Greg, you know, you could always ask the AI. And I said, ask it what? And they're like, ask it what you're trying to say. And I was like, I could do that. So I asked the Zoom AI, I said, hey, what is Greg Hart trying to say? So the AI goes back over everything I've said and then produces this like 5 bullet point thing. And then, here's the best part, took words that I was using that were not real words, and it put them in quotes and used that to show how I was trying to say something and then suggested what it was I was trying to say, and it was very accurate. So when I look at stuff like that, that's kind of cool, right? Like that helps you do things and helps you collaborate with people and whatever. So that's like, so AI I don't think is a competitor with education, but it is if our notion of education stays with you need to know all the answers, because now we have a machine that has all the answers. And it's just like, I'll just ask them all the answers. And we often in the program, you know that I've said before, don't use Google too much, like even to look for things, because every time you look something up, you're stealing your own learning a little bit, right? But there's some times where you just need to get stuff, you know, somewhat quickly. You can't rediscover everything in the universe all over again. But anyway, so that's my answer. I'm only worried about AI once the emergent tech consciousness comes, and then you know, I didn't think there was a path to that, but now I think the next ChatGPT is going to have like 1 trillion tunable parameters, ChatGPT 5. So if you look at the curve, there could be an order of magnitude more within 5 to 7 years, and 10 trillion is certainly enough complexity to potentially produce an emergent consciousness, something like ours. Not that neurons and tunable parameters are the same thing, but you know, anyway. Thank you, great question.